What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to DeadBall TV. Normally, we film these Conmebol World Cup qualifiers, me and Connor, but Connor's not feeling so well, so your boy's going to take this one solo today. If you guys could wish Connor a get well soon down below in the comments, I'm sure he would appreciate that when he inevitably watches this on the channel, just like you guys are doing now. And he may or may not be joining me for a Conmebol live watch-along during this window. We have a couple games up in the air right now, possibly Argentina versus Colombia, maybe something else. Just make sure you're subscribed and following us on Twitter. We're going to go game by game here, nice and easy, folks. Before I get into this, if you like videos about Conmebol, make sure you're subscribed because we have our Conmebol Team of the Season dropping soon after the qualifiers. So a lot of good content here on the channel. Don't miss that. First game here is a juicy one, man. The one that I'm looking forward to the most, more than any other qualifier this window. Brazil versus Ecuador. Brazil won the first match 1-0 earlier in this cycle, and back in 2022, this was a 1-1 draw, a controversial, you could say, 1-1 draw back in Quito. Now, as of time of recording, Ecuador are in second place on 23 points, and they're basically qualified if they get a win this window. Brazil are in fourth and 6 points above the safe zone, though I don't ever expect them to get down there. I think either of these teams, if they pick up 3 points this window, they're sailing. I think the last of the drama inside Conmebol qualifying is really Venezuela versus Bolivia, who can get that intercontinental playoff spot. If a team like Brazil or Colombia or somebody else slipped down there and got surpassed by Venezuela or Bolivia, big problems. And an emergency video here on the channel clowning that national team. Because with all due respect, that should never happen. Like, you gotta be really bad in Conmebol to not qualify anymore. But anyways, I digress. Back to Ecuador versus Brazil. Many of you who are familiar with Conmebol will know that Ecuador's all-time record against Brazil is not very good. They only have 2 wins in the history of qualifying between these two sides, but both of those games were in Ecuador, and both of those games were by a scoreline of 1-0. Now, interestingly, this game will be played in Guayaquil, and the reason I say that's interesting is because typically Ecuador will play some of the bigger teams in Quito to get that altitude buff. It's not quite the same XP boost as what the Bolivians get, but it's still significant. And I'm sure some Ecuadorian will explain down below in the comments why this was moved to Guayaquil. I don't know if it's stadium capacity. I don't know if it's they just wanted more of a challenge, but I'm kind of hoping it's the latter. And personally, am I cool with this decision to play this game at sea level? Absolutely. I will say this now, and maybe some will disagree. Ecuador are too good to rely on altitude. With all due respect, you are not Bolivia. You are better than that. And if you need altitude to beat Brazil, you're kind of a fraud. If that's the only scenario in which Ecuador beat the best teams in Conmebol, that kind of screams pretender to me. So I'm totally fine with this happening in Guayaquil. Because like I said, Ecuador, man, they're good enough to win this game with or without altitude. The last 2 games between these sides have been extremely competitive, and I do not think this is going to be any different. I think the main talking point here is Carlo Ancelotti's debut with Brazil. Now, I don't have time in this video to give a 15-minute prediction for how I feel like his entire tenure is going to go down, so I'll just say very concisely, if he can beat Ecuador in Ecuador, then I think almost immediately his position has been validated, because winning away in Ecuador has become something that is extremely difficult to do, and this Brazil side is in shambles. So if he can take them from in shambles to beating the second best team arguably in South America right now, that's an achievement. And I think if Ecuador lose this game, then we're going to be asking even more questions about Becasese, a manager who I still have not bought into really at all. I think some of his better performances have been a little lucky. Not completely undeserved, but things have gone his way a few times, namely in the Colombia match. But if he can pick up a 3rd win against Brazil at home all time in qualifying, that's a huge statement from him. So I think both managers have the most on the line in these games, much more so than the teams involved. I think the most likely outcome is a 1-1 draw again, but I'm going to throw the gauntlet down. I'm going to back Ecuador. Yes, I'm a little biased here. I think they win 1-0. Moving on to the next game, which is Paraguay versus Uruguay in Asunción. Now, Paraguay has not beaten Uruguay in a qualifier in a long time. I'm seeing their last victory was 2007 in Asunción. That was 9 qualifiers ago. Interestingly, Uruguay seemed to be one of the better visiting sides to Paraguay. They don't lose as often as some of the other bigger South American teams do, including winning the last 2 games as the visiting team. And I'd be shocked if anybody else in Conmebol can say that right now. But as we all know, Uruguay, not in a good place right now. I'm selling hard on all of the Uruguay stock that I have. I think the Bielsa project is teetering on collapse, heading into the 2026 World Cup. On the flip side, Paraguay have become the scariest team to play, and I think they are scarier than Ecuador because they have a scarier attack. Ecuador is still relying on Ener Valencia, who I think has been missing a lot of games recently, so I'm not even sure what his match fitness is going to be. Paraguay kind of have like that three-headed dragon up top with Sanabria and Ciso and Almiron, and I cannot believe I just called the Paraguay attack a three-headed dragon. I mean, who would have said that even 12 months ago? It's insane the turnaround here. Alfaro is really a magician. Now, speaking of Alfaro, Paraguay got the 0-0 draw away in Montevideo in the Luis Suarez send-off game. There was a couple scary moments there, but overall I felt like Paraguay really held firm, and that has been the Alfaro method, the Alfaro formula for success since he was appointed. Draw all the good teams away from home, which he's done with Brazil, I want to say. Uruguay did it with Colombia as well, and beat everybody at home. We might see yet another domino fall. In this game, I do feel like it's a 50% likelihood Paraguay win. I think that's the most likely outcome, probably a 1-0 or 2-1. Then I think the second likely outcome at probably 40% probability is a 1-1 draw, 0-0 draw. I'm going to say 0-0 actually, because Bielsa loves a clean sheet away from home. The result that would absolutely shock me is if Uruguay got something here. I really think the national team's in a bad spot, and I don't think Paraguay is the bounce back game that many national teams need. So all that being said, I think Paraguay in the end take this one by 1 goal. I'll say a 1-0. Speaking of teams that need a comeback game, Colombia versus Peru in Barranquilla. Now you guys know that since the Copa America, Colombia has just been slowly sliding down the table. This is a team that I'm personally very bullish on, and so this kind of free fall they've been in is a little concerning to me. The big difference for me between Colombia and Uruguay is I think Colombia have actually been very competitive in these games. I would chalk some of the results up to being unlucky, whereas I think Uruguay are just kind of dead. And I think playing Peru at home is the perfect game that Colombia needs right now to steady the ship. They should have beat Paraguay at home last window. They fumbled that. They should have beat Bolivia away. They fumbled that. They actually drew to Peru earlier in this cycle. There's a lot for them to gain here. And if the Colombians need a little extra motivación, Peru won the last qualifier away in Colombia last cycle, which had to have been one of their worst results. Looking at the squads here, I didn't really see any huge omissions for anybody. I did see that John Cordoba picked up an injury in training, which might actually be a bad thing for Peru because that surely means John Duran is going to be the starter. While I'm selling Uruguay stock, I'm holding on to my Colombian stock. I think Colombia win this game 2-0. If they don't, then I think it's truly time to panic. Next match here is Chile versus Argentina in Santiago. Now, Argentina are already qualified on 31 points, so they're pretty much chilling the rest of these 4 matches until qualification ends. They've called up a couple more local guys into the squad. We're going to see some rotation. Meanwhile, Chile are in the depths of hell at the bottom of the table, and anything short of a win here means that they're basically eliminated. Now, a crazy stat here, in the history of qualifiers between these two teams, Chile has 1 win. Isn't that insane? And that was at home in 2008. In the last 5 games in Santiago, during qualifiers only, no friendlies, 3 wins for Argentina, 1 draw, 1 victory for Chile. I don't know why, but I expected the record to be much closer. Maybe because I remember most vividly the Copa America finals. That's just absolutely mental to me. It kind of makes the Chilean achievement there look even more impressive. Argentina won 3-0 earlier in the cycle when the game was in Buenos Aires. I think Argentina are clearly the better team. Ricardo Gareca, fun fact, has never beaten Argentina as a manager. He has 2 draws and 5 losses in 7 games all time. Is this version of Chile going to get him his first win against Argentina? Absolutely not. I know that Argentina are rotating, but there's something about Argentine pride, which maybe you have to be Argentine or live in Argentina to truly understand what the heck that means. But they're going to come out here to kill the Chileans. And I promise each and every one of you, they do not care that they're already qualified. It is an honor to play for the national team, and every single time they suit up, they're coming for blood. And these guys that are being called up from the local league, they're going to be extra hungry. They don't want this to be the only time they represent Argentina. So yeah, I think this one could be a little ugly for the Chileans here. Maybe out of respect for their desperation and Gareca, I'm going to say Argentina wins this game 2-1. But I think the most likely scenario is we get an Argentine victory by 2 goals. Last match we have here is Venezuela versus Bolivia in Maturin. This is the biggest game left of qualifying. Ecuador-Brazil is the game that I'm most excited for, but if you want to talk about stakes, it is this game right here. If you want to watch 2 teams who are desperate Beyond belief, it is Venezuela versus Bolivia. Venezuela are currently in 7th place on 15 points, and Bolivia are right behind on 14. Simply put, Venezuela must win this game, and Bolivia cannot lose this game. If Bolivia get a draw here, I think they qualify for the World Cup, because they will rely on their home form, and assuming they take 3 points, maybe even 6 in their final 2 home games, they'll be through. Venezuela, they are very, very bad, almost as bad as Bolivia away from home. They cannot drop points. Whoever has the most points in the next 2 home games, they're through to the continental playoff. Now, in the history of this fixture, the home team wins basically every single time. The last time that the away team won was 2009 when Venezuela beat Bolivia in Bolivia. And y'all, looking at the stats or the historical results, draws don't even happen. It's usually a shootout and somebody wins by 2 goals. And I don't think this game is any different. I have said repeatedly that Maturin is a fortress. I will never forget how Venezuela played the Argentines there, how many great performances they've had during this cycle against some of the better teams. They're very unlucky that they haven't gotten more wins at home because their performances would warrant that. And I don't think Bolivia can get anything here. I think Venezuela wins this game 3-1. And those are the predictions, guys. It's only for one match day because maybe Connor and I are going to do a part 2 in between the games here. I'm not really sure. You're just going to have to subscribe to find out. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you did, smash the like button. Let me know your predictions down below in the comments. Again, make sure you're following us on Twitter to know if we're doing a live watch along for any of these qualifiers. I appreciate you guys for watching, and I'll see y'all in the next one.